In today's video, I'm going over my top 5 pieces of hunting gear from last season. So I was called out by my good friend Greg, also known as G2 Outdoors on YouTube, and he basically made a list of his top 5 pieces of hunting gear and asked me, along with a few other YouTubers, to make similar lists. So for me, number 5 is the Onyx Hunt app. I've made videos in the past showing how you can get information for free, whether it's topo lines, whether it's aerial images, whether it's public land information, getting that into Google Earth, getting that onto your handheld GPS. And I've also used my GPS a lot in the past, my Garmin 62S. And I've found that over the years, I use that Garmin 62S less and less and less in favor of my smartphone. One time where I absolutely for sure will always bring a handheld GPS like the Garmin, and that's when I'm out west in Colorado. On a week-long trip, having batteries that I can replace. And the other thing is with that big antenna on that 62S, it really gives me an extra peace of mind. But when I'm around home, there's pretty much no place that I can go where I'm not getting cell service. And if I don't want to burn through the battery quite as much, I can put my phone in airplane mode and download maps onto the Onyx app. So for me, it's like a convenience thing. I can get a lot of the information that Onyx provides on my own, and I can do it for free. But having it all right there in the Onyx app just saves me hours of time collecting all that information. I would wish that they had added a few more waypoint icons. Some of the other apps I've used like HuntStand or Backcountry Navigator have some other options, but even though I still have those apps downloaded, I find myself using Onyx more than anything else. Number 4, for me, I had a really tough time choosing. There's a couple things that I kind of placed on my hierarchy above where the Onyx Hunt app was, but they weren't quite as good as my top 3. So one of my number 4s is the Cabela's Lockdown boot. This is their whitetail version. It's a 1200 gram thinsulate model. They also have a 400 gram and an uninsulated that they just came out with not too long ago. And this boot basically is a mid or a high top, depending on how you characterize that, hiking boot that has a gaiter that you can pull up. And this has their foremost Dry Plus, I believe it is, membrane. So it's waterproof, but it's also breathable. So when I'm comparing something like this to an insulated rubber boot, I'm looking at it and saying, well, this is gonna provide more stability when I'm on uneven terrain than a rubber boot would. It's also going to be a little bit lighter and it's going to be a little bit more breathable, so it's going to be a little bit more comfortable to walk in. This has a BOA lacing system, so essentially you don't need to tie them. You just stick your foot in, you click that button, and then you just crank them tight, and that's how you get the boots tight onto your foot. The only thing that I'm not a huge fan of with these boots is for the Vibram soles. These soles are very, very stiff. A lot of times when I'd be walking into areas that I'm really trying to sneak in and be quiet, that last 40 yards to the tree stand, sometimes I wouldn't even realize that I was standing on a small twig until it snapped, just because these boots have such a solid sole. A lot of great things I like about these boots. I wish the sole was a little bit more flexible. My other number 4 is my Steerka binoculars. These are 8x42 S9s. I have another video review on these exact pair of binoculars. I've found that if I'm hunting turkeys or I'm hunting out west, the harness that comes with them, I like wearing it a little bit better, keeps it nice tight to your chest, so if you're crawling around in the hills or the mountains, it doesn't bounce around that much. But when I'm hunting out of a tree, I like just your standard, this is a Bushnell harness, but the harness that has some elastic to it, and I can pull the binoculars up and let them fall right back down to my chest. And then I just got one of the Bino Slicker harnesses that covers up the lenses, so I don't have to worry about losing the caps that go over the eyes, the eyepieces. These are fairly expensive binoculars, relatively speaking. They're around the $1,000 price range. And even in that price range, their low light capability is very, very impressive. That's the thing I like more than anything about these binoculars is the low light. And since I'm hunting whitetail so often, since when I go out to Colorado, the first last light when you're looking into the shadows in those ravines, the low light capabilities of binoculars are very important to me. Probably one of the more important characteristics, more important than weight, more important than how crisp and clear the image is, even though these ones are great in that category as well. So I've been very happy with these binoculars. Number 3 for me is my utility strap system. This utility strap system I will store inside of a KUIU hip belt pouch, and that pouch gets stored right on the front of my saddle. This is a system that really isn't going to give you a ton of benefit for a tree stand, but a huge benefit for a saddle, which you'll see in just a second. So once I climb up the tree using climbing sticks or wild edge steps or whatever method I'm going to use to climb the tree, I'll pull that strap out. And basically all it is it is a utility hanger made by HME. And all it really comes with initially is just this 1-inch green strap with a cam buckle, and then it comes with I think 4 or 5 of these little injection molded plastic hooks. I took off all the hooks except for 2 because I only need 2. I need one for my bow, and that bow hook is right on the right side of the tree for me because I'm a lefty. The other hook for me is on the opposite side of the tree. That's where I'll hang my pack, so everything's kind of out of the way. Yet if I needed to get something out of my pack, it's still within easy enough reach. I basically bought like a $10 watch with a nice big digital face from Amazon, and I cut the strap off and I 3D printed just a little bracket to glue on the back of it, and then I could slide it onto the strap. Because in the past I've always dug around for my phone when it gets close to the end of shooting light because I hate wearing wristwatches. I've also added a camera bracket so I can hook either a GoPro or like a Polaroid cube onto it. And then I added a grunt call just with a retractable lanyard. Just kind of the advantage, I guess, with the system as a whole is that it promotes consistency. Every time I hook this thing up in the tree, every accessory is in the exact same spot every time. Number 2 for me is the Arrow Hunter Kestrel. I used this on 100% of my sits last year just to really make sure that I ingrained it into my system. I got past the saddle learning curve once and for all, and I was able to really comfortably and efficiently move around in the tree. In the year prior, I was probably 60-40 saddle versus tree stand, and the saddle that I used was the rock harness paired with the sit drag. Compared to that system, the Kestrel has a couple advantages in my mind. One is that since everything is all one piece, it feels like it's pretty much just an extension of your body. Whereas with the rock harness and the sit drag, they were separate enough so that if I ever had slack in the tether, then all of a sudden the sit drag would be loose and it would fall kind of down the backside of my thighs. The rock harness was always tight onto my body, but again, having that belay loop in the front made it a little bit less convenient to do things like going to the bathroom. It was a little bit harder to put on than this thing is, especially with the quick releases that are built into the Arrow Hunter Kestrel. The other big thing for me with the Kestrel was the fact that it has built-in dedicated lineman loops. There's no other loops on the Kestrel that could really be mistaken for the lineman's loops. Nice in a comfortable spot built into the waist loop, so you know without even looking at them, you can always feel right where they're at. Whereas with the lineman loops that I'd used on my rock harness, I would always have to kind of feel around for it and double check. The Kestrel also comes with the MOLLE webbing attachments in the back. And the last nice thing that's built into the Kestrel that I didn't have in my DIY setup is the adjustment strap on the bottom. So if you go to the Boudreaux Boswell YouTube channel, he has a couple videos on the Kestrel, one of which he shows you where you can get some benefit out of this one single adjustment strap. And it basically allows you to cup the saddle up under your legs. So with the sit drag rock harness setup, if my tether was in the wrong spot, I would kind of feel like I was going to slide out of the saddle. Well, with the Kestrel, you can tighten up these adjustment straps and it kind of brings that saddle up underneath you a little bit more. It makes you feel like you're actually sitting in a saddle, sitting in like a swing versus leaning against it so much. So for all those reasons, I really like the Kestrel. Looking forward to getting some more use out of it this year. And number 1, this one shouldn't be too big of a surprise, but it's the DIY climbing sticks that I built. This whole system with 3 climbing sticks was initially built using the rope mod. It was initially built with 3 double aiders, and that allowed me to basically climb 24 feet with these sticks that was about in the 6-pound range for those 3 sticks, ready to go. That's entire weight, including the ropes, including the aiders, 6 pounds. I've decided to add the buckles. I've decided to change 2 of my aiders to single aiders as opposed to double aiders. So I can only get roughly like 21 feet now versus 24 feet. But the thing I found throughout the year was that early season I could use the double aiders just fine, no problem. As it got later and later into the season, it was getting colder, especially if I was coming on my way down and I was kind of chilled after a hunt. Trying to use those double aiders was just kind of a pain. It was more effort than I wanted to had to put into it. So I swapped those top 2 sticks to double aiders. And the reason that I went to the straps is actually mostly due to the fact that I also have the Wild Edge steps that I bought this year. Wild Edge steps are more packable and the overall system is lighter than sticks. With climbing sticks, they're way faster. So if the advantage of a climbing stick over the Wild Edge system is that it's faster, I might as well just add the extra roughly 1.5 pounds of the buckles and make it even faster yet than using the rope mod. So now if I want to go lightweight, packable, I can go with the Wild Edge steps. If I want to go up the tree nice and fast, I can go with the DIY sticks. So that's my list. I will be doing a couple more videos on these things. I'll be doing a dedicated review on the Aero Hunter Kestrel. I'll be doing another video on the Wild Edge steps, probably another video on saddle versus tree stand, and a whole video on climbing sticks versus Wild Edge steps as a climbing method. So if you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. Make sure to check out G2 Outdoors video as well. He's a good friend of mine, makes great videos, so be sure to check him out. Thanks for watching.